Dr. Aaron Clark's life had taken many turns, from the halls of prestigious medical schools on Earth to the makeshift clinics in the slums of New Vegas City, a bustling metropolis where human and alien lives intertwined under the shadow of towering skyscrapers and flickering neon lights. New Vega was a place of stark contrasts, where luxury and poverty coexisted, and where the forgotten corners of the city were home to those cast aside by the rapid pace of galactic expansion. On this rain-soaked evening, Aaron was making his usual rounds in the lower sectors where the city's homeless sought refuge from the unrelenting downpour. His portable medical kit was stocked with the essentials: bandages, anti-inflammatories, basic antibiotics, and tools for minor surgical procedures. As a doctor dedicated to serving the underprivileged, Aaron had seen his share of hardship and illness, but nothing had prepared him for the sight he would encounter that night. As he navigated through a particularly narrow alley, his flashlight beam caught a figure, or rather two, huddled against the cold wall. A woman and a child, both with their arms wrapped around each other, trying to stay warm under a threadbare blanket. Aaron approached slowly, announcing his presence so as not to startle them. "Hello, I'm Dr. Clark. I'm here to help if you need it," he called out gently, stopping a few feet away to give them space. The woman looked up, her eyes reflecting the neon glow from the nearby street. Her face was marked by the telltale signs of exhaustion and malnourishment, yet there was a dignified grace about her that caught Aaron off guard. Beside her, the little girl clung to her tightly, peeking curiously but cautiously at Aaron. "We're okay," the woman replied, her voice weak but composed. "Just trying to keep warm." Aaron knelt down, setting his medical bag aside. "I have some warm blankets and food in my pack, and I can check if you or your child are ill," he offered, his tone friendly yet professional. After a moment of hesitation, the woman nodded, allowing him to come closer. Aaron draped the blankets around their shoulders and opened his pack to bring out some nutrient-rich rations, which the child eyed hungrily. "My name is Alara, and this is Sia," the woman introduced as they accepted the food. "Nice to meet you both," Aaron smiled, watching as Sia began to eat eagerly. "I also offer basic medical checks. It's important, especially for the little ones." Alara agreed, and Aaron began a quick examination, checking Sia for any signs of fever or infection, and then doing the same for Alara. His practiced hands were gentle, his manner reassuring, a comfort to those who had long been neglected by society. As Aaron continued his examination, he noticed several concerning symptoms in Alara. Her pallor was more pronounced than just from cold, and her breathing was slightly labored. He pulled out his stethoscope, listening to her lungs, his brow furrowing with concern. "You have a respiratory infection, and I'm worried about pneumonia, given your current conditions," Aaron explained, meeting Alara's gaze. "I have some antibiotics that can help, and I'd like to bring you to my clinic for better care. It's not far." Alara was reluctant at first, fear of the unknown clear in her eyes. But as another coughing fit seized her, rattling her thin frame, she nodded in agreement, realizing the seriousness of her condition. With great care, Aaron helped Alara to her feet, supporting her as she was still weak. Sia held tightly to her mother's hand, her small face buried against her side. Aaron led them through the winding alleys to where his clinic, a repurposed shipping container equipped with the essentials for more thorough medical care, was located. Once inside the warm, brightly lit clinic, Aaron set Alara up on a cot, administering a stronger antibiotic and setting up a hydration IV to help combat her dehydration. He gave Sia some blankets and toys to keep her occupied and comfortable while he attended to her mother. As he worked, Aaron kept a gentle conversation going, asking about their origins and how they ended up in the alleys of New Vegas City. Alara, her voice steadier now with the initial treatment, shared bits and pieces of their story, fleeing from a conflict on a distant world, becoming separated from her partner, and the years spent moving from place to place, trying to stay unnoticed. "What brought you so far from home?" Aaron asked as he adjusted the IV drip. "We were looking for safety, a new start," Alara said, her eyes sad. "But it's hard when you're far from everything you know, without resources." Aaron nodded, understanding more than he let on. "You're safe here, for now," he assured her. "I'll do everything I can to help you both recover and find a better situation." As the night deepened, Aaron watched over them, his mind racing with thoughts of how to aid further. Little did he know, the answers to Alara's mysterious past and their future would soon unfold in ways he couldn't yet imagine, leading them into the heart of galactic intrigues and revealing the true identity of his new patients. In the days that followed, Alara and Sia became regular visitors to Aaron's clinic. Each visit allowed Aaron to monitor Alara's recovery closely and to ensure Sia's development wasn't being hindered by their previous hardships. As Alara regained strength, she began to open up more about their life before arriving on New Vega City, her words painting a picture of both beauty and strife. Alara belonged to the Lumian people, known throughout the galaxy for their luminous skin that shimmered under emotional flux and their advanced technology. Her father was a prominent figure, a king who ruled with a strict adherence to tradition and a firm hand on political affairs. Alara, however, was the opposite, rebellious and yearning for adventure beyond the confines of royalty. My father, King Malrek, saw me as an extension of his reign, not as a daughter with dreams of her own, Alara confided during one of her treatment sessions. I met Sia's father during a rare sanctioned excursion. He was a scholar from another system, passionate about cultural exchanges. We fell in love, and I knew that life with him meant renouncing my claim to the throne. As Aaron listened, he couldn't help but admire Alara's courage. It was a rare person who could give up everything for freedom and love. He provided a listening ear, encouraging Alara to express the feelings she had bottled up for so long. Gradually, the clinic became more than just a place for physical healing. It was a sanctuary for Alara and Sia to heal emotionally. Aaron introduced them to other members of the community, slowly integrating them into activities that helped rebuild their sense of belonging. Sia, especially, thrived under the new attention, her laughter becoming a common sound echoing through the halls of the clinic. Aaron took it upon himself to teach Sia some basic science and mathematics, subjects she showed an eager aptitude for. Alara, seeing her daughter happy and engaged, found comfort and began assisting Aaron with organizing his supplies, learning more about human medicine in the process. However, the peace was shattered one afternoon when a mysterious figure visited the clinic. Dressed in nondescript clothing, the stranger asked to speak with Aaron privately. He introduced himself as Jor-El, an envoy from the Lumian royal court. He explained that King Malrek, having deployed his resources to locate his missing daughter and granddaughter, had finally traced them to Aaron's clinic. King Malrek demands their immediate return, Jor-El stated, his tone firm but laced with an underlying sympathy. He is prepared to send enforcers to retrieve them if necessary. Aaron's first thought was to protect Alara and Sia. He requested Jor-El to allow him to discuss the matter with Alara first, to which Jor-El agreed, albeit reluctantly. Aaron knew that forcing Alara to return against her will could lead to a dangerous confrontation. When Aaron relayed the news to Alara, her reaction was one of panic, mixed with defiance. "I cannot go back," she insisted, her luminescent skin flickering with distress. "Life there. It's not life, it's imprisonment." Seeing her distress, Aaron assured her of his support. "Let's figure this out together," he said. "There might be a way to negotiate your stay here, perhaps even seek asylum." The discussion that followed was intense, with Aaron advising Alara on the legal and diplomatic channels they could explore. As a medic, Aaron had contacts with various humanitarian organizations that could offer assistance and legal protection if necessary. Determined to fight for her right to choose her own destiny, Alara agreed to explore all possible options. Aaron promised to stand by her and Sia, ready to defend their newfound freedom at all costs. Together, they prepared to face whatever response King Malrek might send next, knowing that the battle for Alara and Sia's future was just beginning. Aaron sat at his desk late into the night, sifting through the diplomatic channels he had access to. Though he was a doctor, not a politician, his years working on the galactic frontier had introduced him to influential figures within humanitarian organizations and interstellar councils. He had seen too many cases of individuals, especially women, being forced back into oppressive situations under the guise of tradition or politics. Alara's situation was no different. He had to find a way to keep her and Sia safe. Meanwhile, Alara sat across the clinic in a dimly lit room, watching Sia sleep. The gentle glow of her daughter's skin pulsed softly, a reflection of her peaceful dreams. But for Alara, sleep was a luxury she couldn't afford. Her father had found her. After years of running, hiding, struggling to provide for her daughter, he had found her. And this time, there was no escaping the reach of the Lumian royal enforcers. Her mind raced through possibilities. Should she flee again? No, Sia was finally safe, happy. Running had taken everything from them. Should she surrender? But that would mean living under her father's rule, stripped of her freedom, and worst of all, separating Sia from the life she had begun to build. A soft knock at the door startled her. Aaron stepped inside, his face serious but calm. "I've spoken to some people," he began, sitting across from her. "There's a chance we can file for protection under the Intergalactic Refugee Act. But it's complicated. Your father is an influential figure. Any legal battle could take years, and until then, he could send forces to take you back." Alara nodded slowly, absorbing the information. "So what do we do?" Aaron exhaled. "I need to know what kind of man your father is. Will he listen to reason? Is there anything that could make him let you go willingly?" Alara was silent for a long moment before she shook her head. "My father does not negotiate. He sees compromise as weakness." Aaron frowned. "Then we need leverage, something to make him reconsider." Alara hesitated before finally admitting something she had never told anyone. "My father's rule is not as stable as it seems. There is a faction within the Lumian court that believes in reform, diplomatic progress, rather than isolationism. If they knew I was alive and willing to speak, they might use my case to push back against him." Aaron raised an eyebrow. "So if we can get word to these reformists, they might intervene?" She nodded. "But they would have to know I'm safe and free, not a prisoner." Aaron stood. "Then we need to make sure you stay that way. I'll contact them." Before he could move, the clinic's proximity alarms blared. Alara's heart pounded. They were already here. Aaron rushed to the security monitors. A black, sleek Lumian enforcer ship hovered outside, its cloaking tech deactivated now that it had reached its target. Several armored figures disembarked, their movements precise and disciplined. Aaron counted at least 10 royal enforcers, too many for him to handle alone. He turned to Alara. "Get Sia. We're leaving. Now." Aaron grabbed a portable med kit and a cloaking device, strapping it to his belt. The clinic had multiple exits, and he knew the back alleys of New Vega better than most. If they moved quickly, they could lose the enforcers in the urban maze. Alara held Sia close, whispering reassurances as the child's sleepy eyes widened in fear. The glow of her skin brightened, a natural reaction to stress, but that would only make them easier to track. Aaron activated the cloaking device, enveloping them in a soft distortion field. "Stay close to me. Move when I move." The enforcers breached the front entrance of the clinic just as Aaron led Alara and Sia out the back door. The alleyways of New Vega were labyrinthine, full of sharp turns, neon-lit markets, and passageways that led to hidden corners of the city. They ran. Alara's breath was ragged, but she pushed forward, holding Sia tightly as Aaron navigated them through the tangled streets. Behind them, shouts in Lumian echoed through the alleyways, the enforcers realizing their prey had fled. Then, a plasma shot whizzed past Aaron's shoulder, hitting the alley wall in a burst of heat. "Shit," Aaron cursed, ducking behind a stack of old supply crates. "They have tracking tech. The cloaking field isn't enough." Alara gritted her teeth. "We need to reach the underground market. I know someone there who can help." Aaron didn't ask questions. If she had allies, they needed them now. The underground market was hidden beneath the main city, accessible only through certain entrances disguised as abandoned buildings. If they could reach it, they could disappear into the network of smugglers, traders, and exiles who knew how to keep secrets. They kept moving. Sia whimpered in Alara's arms, her small body shivering. Aaron reached into his medkit as they ran, pulling out a mild sedative to ease her fear. "Just a few more minutes, kiddo," he whispered as he pressed the injector to her arm. The calming agent took effect immediately, her tiny glow dimming. A sharp whistle rang out through the alley, a signal. Aaron's stomach clenched. The enforcers were coordinating their forces, herding them like prey. Another plasma shot sizzled past. Aaron pulled Alara behind a metallic dumpster, taking a deep breath. "They're closing in." Alara looked at Sia, then at Aaron. If I distract them, you can get her out. Aaron shook his head immediately. Absolutely not. You don't understand. If they take me, they might not come after her. It's me they want. Aaron clenched his fists. Everything in him screamed against the idea. Then, a voice crackled in his earpiece. Dr. Clark, I have eyes on you. You're headed toward Warehouse District 9. There's an extraction route near the north entrance. If you can get there, I can get you out. Aaron's eyes widened. The voice belonged to an old friend, Jenna Cale, a rogue pilot who had worked in the humanitarian smuggling trade, helping refugees escape war zones. You came just in time, Aaron murmured. Jenna chuckled. You always find trouble. Now move. Aaron relayed the plan to Alara. They just had to make it to Warehouse 9. The final sprint was a blur of adrenaline. Plasma fire erupted behind them as they dodged through the market district. Shopkeepers shouted in alarm as enforcers stormed through, overturning stalls in pursuit. Then, the warehouse entrance came into view. Jenna's ship hovered inside, its rear hatch open, the engines ready to take off. Aaron turned to Alara. Go! Get Sia inside. Alara sprinted forward, clutching her daughter to her chest as she boarded the ship. Aaron covered their escape, firing a stolen plasma pistol at the pursuing enforcers. Just as he climbed aboard, the enforcers fired a blast that struck the ship's side, causing the hull to shake. Jenna didn't wait. The ship took off, roaring into the skies of New Vega. As they ascended, Alara collapsed into a seat, clutching Sia tightly, tears streaming down her face. Aaron sat beside her, heart pounding, as the city lights of New Vega disappeared below them. They had escaped. For now, the ship shot through New Vega's upper atmosphere, leaving behind the neon glow of the city and the Lumian enforcers who had come too close to capturing Alara and Sia. Inside the vessel, the atmosphere was tense, but alive with the hum of engines, the flickering of emergency lights, and the occasional rattle as the ship adjusted to interstellar flight. Aaron leaned back against the cold metal wall, still catching his breath. He had saved lives before, patched up soldiers on war-torn planets, rescued dying refugees from toxic wastelands, but never had he smuggled a fugitive princess and her daughter away from royal enforcers. He ran a hand through his damp hair, exhaling. Across the cargo bay, Alara held Sia close, brushing back her daughter's glowing silver curls. Sia, exhausted from the escape, clung to her mother, her tiny form nestled in the folds of Alara's cloak. She had barely made a sound throughout their desperate sprint, her strength a testament to both her resilience and the weight of the life she had lived on the run. Aaron's gaze drifted to the ship's pilot as she turned in her chair, throwing him a smirk. Jenna Cale. You really know how to make enemies, Clark, Jenna quipped, crossing her arms. You had half the Lumian royal enforcers breathing down your neck back there. Aaron managed a tired chuckle. I thought you liked a challenge. Jenna scoffed. I like challenges that don't involve a galactic king putting a bounty on my head. At that, Alara's gaze snapped up, alarm flashing across her face. He placed a bounty on me? Jenna hesitated, then sighed. Not just you. You, your daughter, and now your accomplice over there. She tilted her head toward Aaron. A royal warrant went out the second their ship landed on New Vega. Your father wants you back, and he doesn't care how. Alara tightened her grip on Sia. Of course, her father wouldn't stop. He never did. He won't negotiate, she murmured, more to herself than anyone else. Aaron frowned. He might not, but what about the reformists you mentioned? The ones inside the Lumian court? If we can contact them? Jenna raised a brow. You're thinking of making a deal with Lumian politicians? Have you met Lumians? They're about as flexible as reinforced durasteel. Alara looked up. They exist. There are factions that want change, but they have no power. They've been suppressed for too long. Then we need to find a way to give them power, Aaron said firmly. Jenna sighed, rubbing her temples. And how exactly do you plan on doing that? The second we enter Lumian space, you'll have an entire fleet coming down on you. Alara's eyes darkened in thought. Not if we go through a back door. Aaron and Jenna both turned to her. There's a neutral planet on the outskirts of Lumian-controlled space, Alara continued. A place called Traxus 3. It's where off-world trade is permitted, where politics and power don't hold as much weight. If we can get there and send a message to the right people, we might have a chance to negotiate. Jenna considered it, then let out a slow breath. Traxus 3, huh? It's risky, but it's possible. I can get us there undetected. Aaron looked at Alara. Are you sure about this? She met his gaze. I can't keep running forever. If we don't try this, my father will never stop hunting us. Aaron nodded. Then let's make it happen. Jenna muttered something under her breath about idiots with hero complexes before turning back to the ship's controls. All right, strap in. We're heading to Traxus 3. The journey to Traxus 3 was tense, filled with quiet conversations and unspoken worries. Sia, despite her young age, seemed to understand the severity of their situation. She remained close to her mother, watching the adults with those intelligent, luminescent eyes. Aaron took every opportunity to check on Alara's health, ensuring her respiratory infection hadn't worsened from the stress and exertion. But beyond the medical exams, their time together deepened their connection. They had gone from strangers to allies, and now, something more. At one point, as they sat in the ship's common room, Aaron found himself speaking before thinking. You could stay, he said softly. Alara glanced up from where she was fixing Sia's loose braid. Stay where? With me, Aaron admitted. I don't know where this ends, but I know that you and Sia deserve better than living in constant fear. You could stay with me. We could build something safe. Alara's lips parted slightly, her expression unreadable. Then, after a long moment, she whispered, I want that, more than anything. And for a brief moment, there was hope. The peace didn't last. As Jenna's ship entered Traxus 3's orbit, an alert blared through the cockpit. Shit. Jenna muttered, her hands flying over the controls. Aaron rushed forward. What is it? Jenna's face was tight with frustration. We've got company. Aaron looked at the radar. A ship was tailing them. No, 2 ships. They found us, Alara said, her hands tightening into fists. Jenna cursed under her breath. I can lose them, but we'll have to land fast. Get ready for turbulence. The ship lurched violently as Jenna executed an evasive maneuver, diving into the planet's thick, storm-laden clouds. The enemy ships followed. The descent turned into a chase through Traxus 3's mountainous canyons, plasma fire streaking past their hull. The ship shook with every near miss, alarms blaring as Jenna pushed the engines to their limit. Alara, hold on to Sia, Aaron shouted as the ship jerked sideways, nearly throwing them against the bulkhead. I've got her. Alara clutched her daughter tightly as the ship barrel rolled through a narrow ravine. Jenna gritted her teeth. We're coming in hot. Brace for impact. With a final burst of speed, the ship shot toward a dense forest, engines sputtering as Jenna forced it into a rough landing. The impact rattled their bones, sending a shockwave of dirt and debris into the air. Silence followed. Then, everyone still alive? Jenna groaned from the pilot's seat. Aaron coughed. Define alive. Alara stirred, checking Sia before nodding. We're okay? Jenna exhaled. Well, that was fun. Aaron gave her a look. Then, outside the ship, movement. Alara stiffened. They followed us. Aaron grabbed his sidearm, pulse pounding. Then we make our stand here. Jenna unholstered her own weapon, eyes glinting. You sure know how to pick your fights, Clark. Aaron smirked, his grip tightening. I don't pick them. They just seem to find me. As they stepped outside, weapons raised, they prepared for the battle to come. The dense forest of Traxus 3 enveloped Aaron, Alara, Jenna, and Sia as they cautiously stepped out from the damaged ship. The air was thick with the scent of moist earth and the faint odor of scorched electronics from their rough landing. Tall, shadowy trees loomed above, their canopies creating a dark, verdant ceiling that barely let through the afternoon light. The relative quiet of the wilderness was deceiving. The tension among the group was palpable, every snapped twig underfoot sounding like a gunshot in the silence. Aaron led them away from the smoking wreckage, his eyes scanning for movement in the underbrush. Jenna, with her hand firmly on her sidearm, moved to cover their flank, while Alara kept Sia close, her eyes wide and alert. It wasn't long before the crackle of a communicator broke the silence. Jenna listened, then whispered, We've got company, and they're close. Enforcer squads are sweeping the area. They've probably got us surrounded by now. Alara's expression hardened. We can't let them take us. Aaron, what's our play? Aaron, assessing their surroundings, pointed to a nearby ridge. We make for higher ground, fortify and hold them off as long as we can. Jenna, can you contact any allies? Jenna nodded, tapping her communicator. I'll send out a distress call, see who bites. no promises. As they hurried toward the ridge, Aaron felt the weight of his responsibility pressing down on him. Protecting a mother and her child from a royal enforcement squad was beyond anything he had signed up for when he became a medic. Yet, there he was, leading a small band of fugitives through an alien forest, fighting for a cause that was just and right. Reaching the ridge, they quickly took up positions behind a series of large boulders, using the natural terrain to their advantage. Aaron checked his weapon, then looked over at Alara and Sia, huddled together behind cover. "Stay down," he instructed firmly, "no matter what happens." Alara nodded, clutching Sia tightly. "We won't let them take us back," she murmured, determination in her voice. The first sign of the enforcers came as a rustling from the trees below them. Then, figures in dark armor emerged, moving with tactical precision. Aaron counted at least a dozen, all heavily armed. The leader, a towering figure in enhanced combat gear, stepped forward, raising a hand to halt his troops. "Alara, daughter of King Malrek, you are ordered to surrender and return with us," he called out, his voice amplified to carry across the distance. Alara stood up slightly from her cover, her response clear and defiant. "I will not go with you. I claim asylum under the Galactic Refuge Act." There was a pause, then the enforcer leader laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "There is no asylum for traitors of the crown. This is your last warning." Before Aaron could stop her, Alara stepped fully into view, her stance proud and unyielding. "Then you'll have to come and take me." The enforcer leader nodded, and a tense silence fell before the forest erupted into chaos. Plasma bolts flew, striking the rocks around Aaron and his group as they returned fire. The battle was fierce, with both sides exchanging heavy fire. Aaron ducked back behind cover, checking his ammunition, his heart racing. Just as their situation seemed desperate, the sound of roaring engines filled the air. Over the ridge, a squadron of small, agile fighters swooped down, their guns blazing as they strafed the enforcer positions. The sudden arrival of air support turned the tide, scattering the enforcer squad and throwing them into disarray. Jenna grinned, her eyes tracking the fighters. "Looks like my distress call got through. Those are Marauder-class ships, pirates mostly, but good in a fight." The fighters made another pass, forcing the remaining enforcers into a full retreat. As the enemy fled, the leader of the fighter squadron landed near Aaron and his group. The pilot, a rugged human with a scarred face, stepped out of his cockpit, a blaster hanging by his side. "You folks looked like you needed some help," he said with a smirk. "Jenna here owes me a favor or two. Figured it was time to collect." Aaron stepped forward, offering his hand. "We appreciate the assist. I'm Aaron Clark." The pilot shook his hand. "Name's Dex. Just doing what's right. Seems you've got the Royal Enforcers on your tail. That's trouble, I know well." With the immediate threat neutralized, they discussed their next steps. Dex offered them refuge with his group, explaining that they operated on the fringes of the galaxy, often taking on missions that aligned with their code of honor. Alara, looking at the tired but hopeful faces of her small band, then at the pirates who had come to their aid, made her decision. "We'll come with you. It's time we joined forces with those who believe in our cause." Aaron nodded in agreement. As they prepared to leave, he took one last look at the forest, now peaceful again. They were leaving behind the world he knew, stepping into the unknown with allies who were once strangers. The ship's engines hummed to life, lifting them away from Traxus 3 and toward their new destiny. Aaron, Alara, Sia, and Jenna, along with their new pirate allies, faced the future together, united by their shared struggles and a common goal: freedom.